Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
Welcome back to the Outlaw Lawyers. Your hosts are Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer. They're the managing partners at Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm and practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. Offices conveniently located Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, and Gastonia. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. And if you've got a legal situation, you can always contact the firm. Call 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186 and leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about. If you've got a legal question and you can get an answer, an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. And you can email your questions to the program, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. And speaking of listener questions, I believe we have one.
We do. This is one, again, we get a lot of the same questions over and over again from different clients at different times. But this is a question that we get every so often, and so I've kind of compiled those questions into one generic fact pattern that we can take a look at. But here is how I have phrased the question. So we've got a client who's got two siblings, and their mom has their elderly mom has passed away, left them a house, left all her three children a house, including our client. And our client tells us that her sibling is living there and is rent-free, right? Not paying any rent, not maintaining the home, not paying the tax bill, not cutting the grass, generally just not taking care of the house, has decided that they're going to live in mom's house and they don't care about anybody else. And our client doesn't like that. Our client's a 1/3 owner. They inherited 1/3. They're not living there. They're not getting any rent, and they're probably forking out some money to take care of the property. So they want the sibling who's living there to pay her fair share. So it's a sister in our fact pattern living there. They want her to pay her fair share. What can they do? Right. So that's the legal question. Joe, what pops in your head when you get that question?
You know, we this is a question we actually get fairly frequently, and maybe not phrased exactly like this, but it's not uncommon for someone to come into our office and present this similar fact pattern where you've got, co-owners who've inherited a property. And a lot of times, people think about this and the first thing that pops into their mind is, well, this person's living there. I need to have them evicted. I just need to get them thrown out and have an eviction done. But, that's not the way these things work. You can't evict a co-owner, someone who is a co-tenant or co-owner of the property. Eviction isn't the proper method to go about it. If you have a rental situation, of course, then you can evict someone, but this isn't someone that's renting from you. This is someone who has a vested ownership interest. And in that scenario, there's no way to evict that person. That person does have a right to be on the property. That person has the right to occupy the property. So you have to go about it a different way. But in this particular fact pattern, I think there's a few preliminary questions you have to ask. The first being, was an estate ever open for your mom? Because the first issue that you're going to have to take care of is proving your ownership of the property as well.
I think that confuses a lot of folks too, Joe, not to sidebar or go down a rabbit hole. But, in North Carolina, if something happened to me tomorrow, my heirs at law inherit real property. So a house, right at the time of my death, right? It's theirs. That's how it works legally. Like I own it until the day I'm dead, and then my heirs get it. But who are my heirs, right? To the general public, you may not know who my heirs are. And so what do? You go open up an estate down at the courthouse. If it's done properly, the estate, I kind of tell people, I always say it kind of acts as a deed, right? It shows the general public who the heirs of, in my case, Josh Whitaker is, right? Who inherited his property. And it's all there. It's in an estate file. A clerk has signed off on it. We know who our owners are. So hopefully that's been done, because that's how you prove to anyone that's not you that you own the property. And so assuming that's been done, and sure enough, we've got three siblings who all inherited 1/3 of this same house. What you would do, what you're left with, like Joe said, eviction isn't the way to go. That's not going to work for you. It's not trespass, right? Because they have a right. They are a 1/3 owner, right? It's not a trespass. Any of the owners could be there at any time. And so you end up, there's a legal proceeding called petition to partition. and it's just a fancy word for saying, hey, we're gonna sell this house. I'm only a 1/3 owner. Maybe the other two people don't want to sell it. Maybe one person doesn't want to sell it because they're living there rent free. But I'm a 1/3 owner. I want my equity out of this property. I want to sell it. And of course, it's much more complicated than what we're making out to be. But it's a legal action that you can take to handle just this situation. And so that's what you end up doing. And a lot of times when we're doing estate planning for folks, we talk about this. Like, okay, you want to leave everything to your 3 kids, share and share alike, but these 3 kids are going to have to work together if the asset is one house, right? So there's things you can do to try to, that's the whole point. If you're estate planning, you don't want to leave your kids or your heirs or your surviving spouse, you don't want to leave them a bunch of problems. You want to have worked through all these things, and there's all kinds of ways to do it. But here, obviously, it wasn't done. You got a problem, so now 1 or 2 of the kids are going to have to go hire an attorney. It's not the cheapest action, right? Petition to partition. You're going to be going to court. You got to put some stuff together. But that's where you end up. If the siblings can't agree that, hey, we should sell this, or you can live here, but you have to pay this much in rent, then you got to go to a judge and handle it that way.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that we tell people in that scenario is it's going to be costly. It's litigation. You're litigating, and it's a process, and it's going to be timely and time consuming. This isn't a thing that's going to occur quickly. So, we always try to, one of the things I think we do in every situation, for the very most part, is try to encourage some form of alternative dispute resolution where you come to a compromise and you come to an agreement outside of this process, because generally speaking, it's going to be better. Everyone's going to be in a better spot if you can all come to some kind of mutually beneficial arrangement ahead of time. Because when you do this partition procedure, it's, to a large degree, it's out of your hands. You're putting it in the court's hands, and you're not going to maintain a lot of the elements of control that you would have otherwise. But a lot of people aren't reasonable, and unfortunately, that's where the basis for most litigation comes into play. Is you have folks that you just can't reason with, that aren't interested in working with you or compromising in any way, and in that case, you just have to go the hard route, and this would be the hard route. But it's something that's doable. And you mentioned the fact of this person wanted them to pay their fair share, pay their taxes, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things can be factors in that partition proceeding. But it is going to be a matter that's going to come before a court and a judge, and it's going to have to be handled the hard way, basically.
Well, guys, I know that we're up against it, but it really pays to be proactive. Talk to your parents, especially if there's going to be real estate involved. Make sure you have that legacy plan in place, will, trust, however you want to go. But if you've got questions in this arena that we've been talking about, you can always contact Whitaker and Hamer, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186, and get those questions answered for you. And an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will return your call. We're going to take a short break, and we're back right after this.